Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful guest today is Shanan Terale. What are we going to be talking about? How to have playful tools to help you gain financial agency and tackle life's challenges like the wealthy 1%. We can't say look at the 1% and think it's not fair that they do not share or contribute or seed other opportunities. But can we also take some tips from their book and maybe redirect our own business into that line? Because why can't we be a percent somewhere up there? She said she works with first generation professionals who struggle to make their money go the same distance as their colleagues, who overpay on their taxes, who struggle to build a secure and sustainable nest egg and create long-term wealth vision and implement it. She's born to a middle class. Her family lost everything twice because of a crisis. And she became the first one in the family to go to college, graduate school, and practice law. But she still felt powerless to help. So throughout her career, she has worked with every type of financial professional, worked as a family office for billionaire family, learned to practice law from some of the best lawyers who are at the highest levels. And she was they were so intrigued by her skills, knowledge with her playful nature to create additional tools and help people develop financial agency and navigate that common life struggles using the same tools as the 1%. She has a bachelor's degree in economics and Latino studies at Columbia University. She spent many years FactSet research system and was promoted multiple times and managed 3 of the top-selling accounts. She's a graduate from Northwestern University and so much more. She's a cat lady. Her little cat there kind of may come across the video, which is fine because they like to be in the picture too. Financial struggle is probably, I think, one of the number one things in any business, whether you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, big entrepreneur, or whether you are just working with people as an independent or in a small group. How do you stand out? How do you get your word across? How do you make yourself financially secure while still doing your passion? That's the key, isn't it? Welcome to the show, love.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you so much for having me. Being able to maintain your passion and passion paired with your talents and experiences ultimately can yield the motivation to continue through the challenges, because the reality is, whether you have a ton of money or no money, you're going to experience challenges. And at a certain point, people face problems that money can't solve. And that's a real pickle.
There are those problems that money doesn't, many people out, especially the 1%, they throw money at it. But
Right.
what they're doing is throwing the problem to someone else to solve.
Correct.
That's all. The problem still has to be resolved. Money may help because you're hiring the right person, but ultimately you have a problem and you've got to deal with it.
And even the right person, if they're not put in the position where they can actually solve the problem for you, they can do what they can, but they can only do so much. Sometimes when I was practicing at a law firm, I would actually joke, I'm a very expensive janitor. Like, I'm cleanup crew for someone's mess.
Yeah.
And
You got to have a
sometimes
knack for that. You have to have a knack for that.
you do. And sometimes people broke glass. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, they're just like, fix the glass. And it's like, no, this needs to come out and be replaced.
Yeah. 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 The amount of time it would take to fix it, you could have replaced it with something maybe more efficient. and less
Correct.
breakable.
Right?
Yeah.
Pyrex got that recipe down.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So kind of immediately what comes to my mind is scandal. Somebody troubleshoots the problem. And,
I mean,
obviously maybe not to that extreme, but really what it is, you really do have to have a knack to see where the problem is. Because if you don't understand what the problem is, how can you find the solution?
exactly. And then hilarious enough, if you're only thinking about the problem itself,
Mm,
like once you find it, then you have to focus on the solution and they are not the same
yeah,
energies really.
right,
When you
right.
because if you focus on a problem, all you'll keep finding are more problems.
Hmm.
Which is the irony of it, because people are always like, well, I have this problem and this is driving me crazy. And they focus on that problem and then they get more to focus on. Because so ultimately, it's going from the space of, okay, I understand the problem. What is the solution? What is the value in the solution? And going into what will actually allow me to get to that space is a whole different energy. And that's sometimes what people call mindset work. And ultimately, with mindset work and essentially creating thoughts, actions, and beliefs that facilitate, a result. And if not a result, certainly facilitate your decisions and your actions, which could lead to a result.
Right.
Then, if people are ultimately creating that for themselves and knowing how to shift, okay, let me find the problem because got to start there. If I don't know what the
Yes.
problem is, I can't
Yes.
solve it. And
Exactly.
then sometimes you have to dig deep to find those things. But then, two, okay, now that I found the problem, let me move myself towards that solution. I can't stay here. I can learn all about this problem all I want.
Hmm.
And I could probably learn so many details, I could fill up a river. So, but that's only creating more junk.
Yeah.
So let me
What you
figure out
going
what
to
the
do
solution.
about it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what can I control? Because I can't
Yes.
control everything in this situation. I can only control so many variables. And so let me focus on what I can control and then leave the rest. But things have a way of working themselves out when people take that approach. So it's being very systematic, and
Mm,
passions paired with a systematic approach ultimately will yield people the biggest results with whatever they're doing.
mm. I agree, to everything you said there. And I think one of the things to point out is that, when something's not working, we could go catastrophic crisis, right?
Yes.
And oh no, I'm not going to meet the deadline. This isn't going to happen, and everything.
Right.
And the
Life is
first thing you do,
over.
yes, take a deep breath, take a few deep breaths, right?
Yes. Breathe.
Make your spine be straight and just let it go. Go for a walk.
Well,
Go and do something
yes.
else.
Go
Come
for a
back
walk.
at it with focus
Play a
and
game for 15
play. Yeah,
minutes.
exactly. Do not stay in that moment because guarantee you're not going to see the problem or the solution. You're going to just see panic, right?
Exactly.
So you have to step out of that zone. And what happens, most people is they end up just chasing their tail
Yes.
and nibbling at it. And next thing they've got no tail and have another problem. So
Right. They have another problem, no tail, when they had one to begin with, and they're
yes,
hoping someone else can give them a new tail.
yes,
And no one can grow that tail out for you.
exactly.
So yeah, I
Patience,
totally get that.
persistence, focus, and just approaching everything calmly.
Yes. And it's hard to stay
Hmm.
calm. So
Hmm.
that requires people to actually do things that allow them to be centered, but also to learn to take the time to pause, really reflect on themselves and look at what they have going for themselves. I find that most people are very good at picking out the good things in others, but they're
Yeah.
not as good as picking out the good things in themselves.
Oh gosh, yes. I think that's kind of a human condition that we've been taught for so long. For you to talk about what's good about yourself or for you to just, step up in pride and accomplishment is vain and egotistical. And instead of like, no, I've worked to this point of understanding. I've worked to this point to be this person. I can
Yes.
stand tall in who I am, right? And own who I am in all my glory and all my flawsomeness, all cracks and all, right? So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And the reality is, like, there is a place for some humility there because
Yes, oh yes,
ultimately
yes.
people can get ahead of themselves and partially with enthusiasm, sometimes for good reasons and good intentions, sometimes not. But at the same time, I find that most people are not going to that extreme. They are going to the opposite, where they never find the good in themselves. And really, the things that we criticize ourselves about are actually probably tied to our gifts. And
Mm,
teaching
mm,
people to see their gifts in a different way,
yeah,
almost the same way businesses keep income statements and everything, and everyone focuses on the income that a business drives. However, we also have to invest
yeah.
in our business, and balance sheet tells you what assets have the ability to generate future returns and therefore ultimately in the long term increase revenue. And people oftentimes don't pay attention to essentially the characteristics about themselves that are creating what I would call positive equity, because you can have positive or negative equity in your characteristics. And every good one has both. It
Yeah.
has both a bad thing with it or a liability. It has a way that it can be used to generate positive results in your life and negative results.
Hmm.
And if people took a step back and said, okay, maybe I'm criticizing myself on this thing that creates negative results in my life in certain ways, but it's obviously serving me in other ways. What else can I see about this? What's
Hmm.
positive about it? What does it give me?
Hmm.
And if you're literally getting nothing from it, okay, that's that thing you probably do want to change in the
Yes.
short term. But in many cases, it's not that. It's something that you want to keep. You just want to redirect it and
Hmm.
make it so if you're creative, but you're not consistent, you may need to work on consistency, but your creativity is not the problem.
Right. 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 I'm always saying this, people probably get tired of probably listening to it. You are your business. People buy you before they buy from you,
Yes,
right? So not only are you confident in what you are doing, you're confident in who you are being. And we really need to invest in the beingness. Who am I? What do I need? How do I support me? Because the best
yes,
version of me I bring to the table is more the success of my business.
correct. And so, like, I have someone who I admire and have spoken with a number of times. He wrote the book called Red Helicopter. His name's James Ray. He calls it your capital P product,
Hmm.
and the lowercase p product. So the lowercase p product is what you sell that brings in the money that keeps the
Hmm.
doors open to your business. But your capital P product is really why people identify with you.
Yeah.
It's really why people resonate with you. It's really the connection, the problem that you solve, and the value that you're bringing. So some people bring an element of anyone could sell it, but they trust you. Your
Yeah.
capital P product is the trust that you're creating, the safe space that you're creating. The lowercase p product is maybe your coaching services.
Yeah.
And understanding that about your business and understanding that actually helps people brand. And then it also helps them with pricing. So that way, ultimately, instead of pricing themselves and racing to the bottom, because we all want to, of course, sell our products and we all want to
Hmm.
get it to people in need, but at the same time, there are practical concerns and costs to doing business, and recognizing that it's okay to value something accordingly. And it's
Exactly.
okay to put in practices that support that. It does not mean that you price, you may have to reconsider your target audience if no one in your target audience could
Hmm.
afford your product. But maybe you're not pitching to the right audience. That's
Right.
something to consider. Maybe you are, but okay, you're priced out. So what can you offer that would serve that audience? And then change your offer that you need to have for that price to the right target audience. But
Tier it,
understand
right?
what's tiering. Yes.
Yeah.
So please understand what it is that you specifically are offering. And for some, it's creating a community. For some, and sometimes communities take time, but some, it's just trust and credibility. Ultimately, knowing that it's not just business as usual in a
Right.
cold, sinister way.
Right.
It's artists want to be paid for their art. No one wants to be
Yes.
the poor, starving artist,
No.
and that's okay.
Exactly. Everybody, who puts time into something, it comes from the heart and it's passionate and it's going to serve someone, should be rewarded. And that
Yes,
reward is in not just adoration, which, yes, for some people it becomes that, but, in that substance, that money that is. that puts the roof over your head and everything else. We talked about this before the show. Money should never define you. It is a tool, it is another instrument that you use to look after you and further your business. So we all need money. But I think if you're money driven in a business, I believe you're going to fail. Because if you're looking at everybody as a dollar sign, they feel that. And they
Yes.
want to go someone that sees them as the person that takes the time to see them, to
Yes.
hear them. What is your problem? Now, I've heard your problem. These are the solutions I can offer you. But you've got so many people who are driven by the money, six figures. I can do this, I can do that, pay this, da, 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 and it's rah-rah. And I feel that people feel, but where's the connection? Where's the relationship between client and customer? Do you really care or are you just wanting my money? And I think, businesses that decide that they want to do business because the first and foremost, they want to help their clients. They really are here to help people thrive and have a better life or, heal that obstacle that's in their way. And that is the main currency.
Yes. Agree. And that does not mean that someone cannot be profitable. Like,
Yeah.
just to reiterate, you can be profitable and do both. Someone
Yes.
who's an artist can appeal to investor interests
Hmm.
and understand, in particularly for artists, understanding how investors work, understanding the things that they need, and understanding how the tax code helps them
Hmm.
choose which investments are going to work. Just because they might want to invest in something, they will find the thing that works and achieves their purpose for the deal. And then they will use the tax code, for example, to multiply the impact of it. So, an artist who can understand both perspectives has the ability to utilize that knowledge in a way that will actually allow them to get more people pouring into them while they pour into those other people, because you're meeting each other's needs. And in
Exactly.
so yeah, but in a society where we're all so connected across borders now, it people miss those moments where they could go into a store and
Mm.
meet the owner and shake their hands, and that owner was actually accountable to that community of
Yes.
people because they went to lunch with them every weekend.
Hmm. 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 I think, kind of bring back the village mentality needs to be here where we do look at each other. You talked about niches. Who are you there? And of course, with online now, you can online coach people in Timbuktu, probably be the
Yes.
moon soon, right? Because this is, yes, it's a very wonderful platform. This is my entire business, right? Doing it all through the computer. But there is nothing like, you know, flesh to flesh, yeah, a hug, shaking of a hand, being able to look into the eyes. And, sometimes when you look at your niche, again, going back to tiering, have your online customers that aren't in your area, but who are the people that are in your area that you can serve? Because then that's feeding you, yeah, and feeding them, but it's then you've got to bring back that nectar and be able to feed your online people.
Exactly. And, if you find customers who are scattered across the world, things like this, like doing Zoom, the way that
Hmm.
we're able to connect, they're better than nothing. But
Yeah.
then ultimately, as you get more capability, try to get on the ground with them.
Hmm.
And the more people don't realize how important it is to stay in touch with their clients.
Hmm.
Because when I worked, for example, at FactSet, there was a point where I started as a consultant. I was working with the clients every day. Then there was a point where I'd been promoted up. I didn't work with the clients every day, but I had a team. I had a team of people who did. So it was very important for me that if I was not speaking with the client, and I tried to speak with them at least every couple of days, but we have administrative responsibilities,
Yeah.
etc. And so, but I would speak to my team, and my team was on the ground, and I would listen to them, creating a feedback loop
Hmm.
one way or another, whether it's directly or indirectly, is extremely important in businesses.
People want to be seen, they want to be heard. They don't want to be
Yes.
pitched to, and they don't want to be pressured,
Yes.
right? So, how do we make that connection and keep that connection sustainable? Is by reconnecting, maybe even knowing when their birthday is, sending them a birthday card, right? Checking in. How are you doing? No, no, this is not a sales thing. I just want to know if everything's working out for you. Again, that personal touch, it is kind of the love currency because it shows you care, right? And this person is valuable to you, not just
Yes,
because of the dollar, because you really do care about their success. That picket fence chatter is going to be so much faster. I had this wonderful experience with this coach. She really cared. She really took the time and she keeps calling me to make sure I'm okay. No sales pitch, just checking in. And it makes me feel valued. Do we not want our clients to feel valued?
exactly. Sometimes, like with my coaching cohorts, the people who I've spoken with, there are times where I've gone to events that they posted and I've see them. I will follow up with them, make sure that they're okay, see how everything's going. Because I'm not trying to sell them anything. Sometimes
Hmm.
I've done things just to say, hey, they needed help with something. It wasn't something that I actually charged for, but it was something that I could just do really quickly.
Yeah,
I could do that. I could give them that feedback that they needed and that
right.
reassurance. And it it's, it wasn't about the money. It was about like, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for believing in me. And I'm
Hmm.
glad that you found value in what I did. But at the same time, I'm that like I took it as a compliment that they even came back.
Exactly.
um,
Trust. Well, that is that big word, trust.
yes.
They trusted the experience they had with you, right? It's because you made them feel valued, because you resolved their problem, because you cared. And in a world where we're saturated by, everybody selling their wares and everybody pushing something and people feeling, well, there's so much out there in the market, I don't know what's real and what isn't. It's the reason I do these shows. When you listen to the person I'm interviewing, do you resonate? Do you feel them? Are they on the same frequency? Are they saying things that you need? It's a great big huge business card. Right? Because if you resonate and you like the person and you really feel connected, then you reach out. My motto is listen, learn, apply, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing is we as customers also have to do our work of not being caught in by the flash and the dash. And there's many a time I've looked at somebody's site before I've interviewed them. And then when I talk to them and I go, you and the site are not the one of the same person.
Not the same at all.
So they've hired someone to do it generically, and there isn't an ounce of them in there. It's all about what they do, no representation of who they are, who they're being. And we really do want the beingness of you. Obviously, we've hired you for your capabilities, right? But really, it's that beingness that we want. Are you a human being?
Well,
can I feel comfortable to pick up the phone and call you?
and one of the things that I particularly teach on, and this is because I write fiction personally and everything, but I teach in stories. And one of the reasons why I teach in stories is because people can relate to stories.
Yes,
And
yes,
at the end of the day, there are some people out there who are extremely technical and you can just run down the list. However, most people can remember a story.
yeah,
And even if they forget all the technicalities, the story teaches in and of
mm,
itself.
it
And
does.
to do a story, you have to embed parts of you. There
Hmm.
is no retelling a story, even if you rewrite it, you're going to rewrite it at a different cadence than the author. Even if you retell it just by speaking, your tone is going to be different. You always embed parts of you. And
Yeah,
it's okay to take something that's bespoke and then make it your own. And I
yeah.
think oftentimes people forget that.
Hmm. Making it your own. I have a lovely diagram here, like 55% when you walk into a room is how you present yourself. If you feel uncomfortable in your own skin, that immediately is going to be picked up. 37%, was it 37 or 8% is your tone of voice. That sets the stage for people to receive you. Are you invitational in your tone where they really do want, and it's only 7% is the content. At this point, that 7% content will grow if you get through the other percentage. But
Exactly.
is how do they feel about you? Are you walking through with confidence? Are you feeling, I really like the vibe of this person? Because it isn't just the way you look. It isn't just the way, however powerful you are. If you're not connectable, then people aren't going to want to do business with you.
Well, here's a fun trick about that. Ultimately, in order to connect with others, we have to work on connecting with ourselves because that
Mhm.
opens up the chain for that
Yeah.
to be possible. And people don't necessarily pay attention to their why, they pay attention to what they want.
Yes.
But if
Yes.
they pay attention to the why, it will drive the what.
Hmm.
And ultimately, it creates space for them to articulate something to someone else. And if they can articulate both how they really feel about this as well as what they know, then that creates multiple channels for someone else to connect to. Because some people are very, very, very logical. They just tell me this, tell me B, and that's all I want to know. But most people can, this is why we love our families, whether they're quote useful or not to us, right? We just love them because they make us laugh, which by the way is useful. It's
Very.
just how do you find it?
Yeah.
And then ultimately they're available for a hug. There's that
Hmm.
person in your family who you can say, I did everything wrong, and they just say I love you anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like that's valuable to
Yeah.
people, and it's opening those channels to connect. And people, because we live in a society where no one really knows each other
Hmm.
anymore, there's less trust.
Yes.
And to be able to trust others, you have to trust yourself. You have to be in a place where you can be a bit vulnerable. Lord knows, talking about the fact that like my family, like we lost our home when I was a kid, right? And
Hmm.
those types of events in my life, I'm a first generation college student. No odds would pick me to have the opportunities I've had. And even despite having those opportunities, I also realized that, okay, great. I went to these quote great schools and have had these amazing opportunities, but there are people who did not have a fraction of those opportunities and have done extraordinary things.
Yes.
And it's not the resume list that people connect to me through. People connect to me because they know ultimately I'm just going to show up as me, and then I'm compassionate and kind to
Yeah.
people. And I've had to, now granted, that's the other part. I had to learn to add some boundaries in there
Oh, yes,
with
yes,
that
yes.
kindness.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Otherwise, people will definitely take advantage of you. That's for sure.
Well, there are people who won't, but the thing is, I can't rely on that at the end of the
Exactly.
day.
Yeah.
But if I can, but I can't, and I can't trust me if I don't rely on the fact that I can determine whether someone is showing up in a genuine way, and then meet them where they're at, and then give them the space to do so. But then at the same time, not allow myself to be taken advantage of. That's how I create that internal connection with
Hmm.
myself, and then it allows me to give it to others.
I think the taking advantage and the boundaries is so important because there's an awful lot of piranhas out there. And they'll come in and they'll go, oh, I like this. Oh, yummy. And they'll suck everything out of you. And if they know already there are boundaries and somebody pushes against those boundaries, respectfully, I'm closing the door.
Yes.
Right. And unfortunately, some piranhas don't see doors, don't see boundaries at all. They just see their need and they think you've got the solution to their need and they're just going to suck the hell out of you. And that's where you have to say, no, I'm sorry. Can't go any further. This door is closed, or if this at this particular time I can assist you, not at this time, because otherwise they will take advantage. And unfortunately, we have an awful lot of what I call lost souls, people trying to find their way, thinking this is it. I'll do this, I'll do that, and but they still haven't come to terms with their inner turmoil. And they're really kind of not asking you business
No.
tips. What they're asking you is to fix their inner turmoil. Right?
Exactly. And I can't fix their inner
Mhm.
turmoil, but what I can do, and this is where a lot of the legal specialty comes into place, is I think of oftentimes legal instruments as boundaries within business.
Mhm.
Ultimately, what you're doing is you're setting up structures that enforce those boundaries for you. So it's not designed as a weapon where you're
Mhm.
taking advantage of others. It is a shield. Can a shield be used as a weapon if necessary? Yes, but that's not the purpose.
Right.
And so ultimately, when people are choosing legal structures and implementing things to de-risk themselves, they are putting in boundaries.
Mhm.
Just these are boundaries that our laws have recognized and implemented for us, and that we are just taking advantage of. And so by teaching people that this is how they work, now it's like, oh, I have this problem in business. I can apply this legal tool and work with a professional
Yeah.
to help solve it. Oftentimes, people don't even know how it's used, what it's for, that it
Mhm.
even exists. so they can't protect themselves. And then it makes it so when they're trying to expand and grow and do things in business, they don't feel comfortable because, oh my gosh, there's all these things that could go wrong. Well, the thing is, if you know what could go wrong, you can plan for them. And many of those things, if you implement certain tools to de-risk yourself, and some of which, hilarious enough, I call it like the pharaoh with the sarcophagus
Mm.
and all the gold and jewels and
Yes.
everything that are buried in the pyramids of Egypt. It's just a lot of times for regular people, many of the estate planning tools double in
Mm.
these respects, but because people are fearful of the concept of death, they
Hmm.
never get to that treasure. And
Mm.
so by teaching people, yeah, no, it's not about for when, yes, it is about for that. Yes, like the Pharaoh did go to the grave, sure. But it's about protecting what you have now.
Yeah.
It's about allowing you to actually create boundaries so that piranha who you need to separate from because they are
Hmm.
chomping at the bit, you have a tool that makes them let go and go away.
Right.
And you're prepared to do so.
Yeah,
And
you have to be
so
prepared to do so. You because
we do.
you will come across those people very much so in business. And I think it's our well-being, our energy, and the gift that we were given to do, which you refine, because I think wisdom is very much downloaded, resonates with the heart true, given to the spirit action for the mind to know the clarity it needs when it needs it. So we can have an awful lot of knowledge up there, but that doesn't mean we always know how to use that knowledge. And we have to kind of tune in with the wisdom, the soul, heart, and spirit to understand what knowledge is relevant in that time. And when we have, the tools and the skills to apply to a problem, oh, it worked. Well, this tool is really handy. I can use it on any problem down the road. And if not, I can go back to source to find out if they have another tool for it. And that's but being prepared to use the tool
Yes,
in a way that is going to work for you and also be open-minded enough, wise enough to know how else you can use that tool. It isn't just a one application and throw away, right?
it's option value. So
Yes.
when someone knows, okay, these are tools that I have in my toolkit. These are tools that I want in my toolkit. I may not have them yet, but I know that they can exist.
Hmm.
Now I can aim and
Hmm.
do things that direct me towards it versus shooting around in the dark. I don't know
Yes.
about anybody else, but I can't see in the dark when I'm trying to like get upstairs. I have to turn on lights so I can focus on where I'm going. Otherwise, I will trip over the stairs. I
Or
think
the
of it as
cat.
this or the cat. His favorite place is to be in the way.
Yeah, of course, that's a cat. Permission to pass me if you give me a belly rub.
Exactly. And his name's Dasher, and he lives up to his name, and he loves to dash in the exact same spot I'm about to place my foot. And
Right,
it's just like,
right.
you are scaring mommy.
Yeah. And I
um,
love that because there's so much to life too. We're going to, walk forward, think we're confident, but you've got to pay attention what's under your foot.
exactly. And so I think of it as okay, we know what our options are, we know how they work because and this works for what I'm going towards.
Yes.
And one of the things I do like to teach is okay, I do like to teach people these are the problems, these are the tools, this is how they work, almost like you're putting together a living room set or like a picture. You have to screw things together. But if you don't know how things connect, you don't have that guide, it's hard. It's almost impossible. You have no agency. It's like the IKEA boxes where
Mhm.
you literally have no instructions.
Exactly.
And
And the
all these
instructions aren't that great to start off with.
all these parts and no real instructions.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
And I feel like with people in finances and particularly life goals and finances, people talk about finances separate from life goals. They talk about legal issues separate from finances and life goals. And the reality is they are interconnected.
Absolutely.
One facilitates the other, but people need to know that story so then they can actually build financial agency and strategies
Yeah, don't build financial agency just for today
for
or for,
life.
just tomorrow. Look long term.
Yeah, for
And,
life, for multi generations.
we're multi-generation, but also, your retirement. You've worked
Yes.
hard, right? And now you're retiring and you think you're going to have life. I'll give you a little story. I have somebody that goes in and helps seniors with their computers, because they run into problems sometimes. And so he goes into a lot of nursing homes. And this one couple went into a nursing home with 1.2 million around 20 something years ago. And they overlived, right? They're closer to 100. They didn't die when the money ran out, and they were put in the basement on cots, and they're in their 90s and close to 100, and that's how they were treated. They really, really thought that 1.2 million would take care of them for the rest of their life. And I think, yes, you're getting money today to build your life now, right? And it's like make sure that it takes root so that it's there for you tomorrow. And that down the road, that tree is abundant, that orchard is abundant, and you can pick your own security and sustainability. But I think anybody that's in business, yeah, we do want you to focus on the now, but make sure you're paying attention to tomorrow as well.
Correct. I, when people often talk about sacrifice in business, people
Mhm.
always mean sacrifice the now for later. And then there are some people who just like, well, you know, fear of missing out. You only YOLO, you only live once, so let me live for the now. There's a happy medium somewhere
Yes.
in there where you balance your needs and some wants that you have now, and then think of the future and get your money to work for you. And
Hmm.
then think of your off ramps. And okay, some people have families that they want to leave things to, and there are some people who don't. My guess is whether you do or don't, you have friends, things that you love, things that have added value into your life, whether it's causes from local charities, things that have been of benefit to you that ultimately you want to plan for. And if you're actually planning for those things, it's a lot easier to focus on what you need to do in the long term because it's more motivating.
Yeah.
If ultimately people don't motivate themselves enough, they can't see to the future, and
No.
they're not thinking it's very limited, it's too hazy, this magnificent future, like you said, with the patient who they went in with 1.2 million, and then
Yes.
they outlived their
Yes.
deadline. My gosh, what a horrible thing to do.
I
You
know.
have more life in you.
Yeah. Exactly. How dare you live longer than your than your fee? Um, and it's atrocity that they just threw them down in cots, at that age and everything. Show the lack of respect. But I think the other thing is that we're so busy in building, and many people pour the money back into the bills business, which is great if it's going to help the business. But again, be careful. All your eggs in one basket. You really want to diversify those eggs so that
Yes.
if one basket drops, you're not losing the whole dozen.
Correct. I mean, there are certain situations where we've all heard the stories of the entrepreneur who sank everything and it
Yes,
worked. But the thing is, are you going to work as hard and probably as sleeplessly as they did to make it
yes,
work? And okay, what else are you going to do? And at the end of the day, no one, if you're alive, you have an opportunity to get things more concrete. You have an opportunity to change things. Now, the speed at which you change things can be variable. And of course, people can always reset. They can
hmm
always, if their brain is functioning, they have the ability to do something. They have a gift in there somewhere. If they only focus on that horrible situation that they're facing, they don't see
no,
the opportunity that it's gifting them.
yes,
And sometimes whether or not that might be, yeah, knowledge that they pass on to their families for the future. Like it could be just a lesson, sure. But my guess is there's probably more to it than that.
as Oprah and many people that are, really up there today, every single one of them says fail, fail time and time again, because that's where you really learn the true lesson of how to get back up, how to redirect, how to face the chaos and be flexible and know what to do. We learn from our failures. I don't call them failures. I call them redirects. Lesson learned in a redirect, because that's what they're there for. They're there to show you what you're currently doing isn't working and that you need to rethink and reset and go in a different direction.
I would
Not here to
encourage
punish us, right?
I agree. And the reality is I agree with you. It's a redirect, it's a lesson. I think the moment someone's like, I failed at something, I didn't do well, then because people do think that way,
Yeah. Yes.
unfortunately, they get very hard on themselves. I think they do need to be like, okay, this is a failure. Now intentionally let me redirect this.
Yeah.
Eventually, what will happen is they will start to think of the setback as a lesson, as a
Hmm.
redirect
Yeah.
automatically. But their starting point is, oh my gosh, this didn't work out for me. This did not go the way I planned. I'm a failure. I'm never going to be successful. And then and it's like, okay, read every success story out there. Every
Yeah.
story we call a success story,
Yes.
there is not a single one of them who has not had that moment
Yeah.
and then managed to keep going in a more productive way. Now, they didn't,
Absolutely.
and that was the thing. They did not keep going in the exact same way. They kept
Mm.
going in a more productive way. They made tweaks, they made adjustments because sometimes you could be doing 80% of the things right,
Yeah.
but it's really the 20% you're getting wrong that's causing the problem.
Right.
So being able to say, okay, this it's not the idea, it's the execution, it's the target audience, it's this, and then play around with let me try this audience, let me try this, and giving themselves flexibility and agility in that manner. And no one's too old to do this. If your brain works, if you can watch TV, if you can read a book, you can do this. It's just a matter of playing around with it and not beating yourself up to it. That was one of the things that I realized in my career. Attorneys, we kind of hold ourselves to near perfection. We,
Oh,
you know,
there's perfect moments in life, but there is no such thing as perfection. And
exactly.
those perfect moments are just so beautiful and cherished. You know, the cherry on the top, absolutely wonderful. But we can't sustain that energy all the time. We need an energy that is constantly in flow, and we'll get those wonderful highs of something
Yes,
perfect in the moment. But that doesn't mean it has to go down to catastrophic in the next. We know how
exactly.
to avoid the catastrophic.
Exactly. Avoiding the catastrophic and then also not making a mountain out of a molehill, right? To
Oh,
use the
yes.
cliche. Like it's
Yes.
something really small because attorneys we like to get all the details. And it's like, and granted, for attorneys, one of the biggest issues is the fact that those little details do matter. You can lose, quote, lose a case or a deal
Mm,
over those small things. So it's really important, but it's not that you forget that it's important. It's about like the reality is, okay, I did my best. Here are things I can do to do better the next time, but give yourself credit. Like I didn't sleep enough. So how
mm.
do I set myself up to sleep more, for
Yeah.
example? It's putting yourself in the position where you can succeed
Be willing
and
to change routines.
willing to change routines. For me, I actually, when I teach, I like to teach about practices as opposed to routines. I think
Mm.
practices will inform routines, but if your routine is thrown off, I get up at 5 a.m., I work out, I eat breakfast, I feed the cat in whatever order. Let's say you oversleep your alarm and it's 7 a.m. and you need to improvise.
Yes.
Ultimately, your routine won't work, but your
Mm.
practices will because
Yeah.
you, you can feed the cat, you can do things that get your heart rate up really quick, motivate you, feed yourself a different breakfast that's quicker, for example, if you hadn't already pre-made it. You have options. And I like practices because ultimately they come from things that matter to you. And if you, I think by informing ourselves with things that matter. Okay, if I value integrity, what's being in what is integral to myself? Well, I need to
Yeah.
meditate. I need to pray. I need to have this time. Okay, I may not be able to give myself a half an hour, but I can give myself 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, and that
And
5 minutes is still very powerful,
it
right?
is.
And we talk about practices, those are the tools.
Those are the
That's the
tools.
system that you're in. And if it's a system that works for you, then you can be more flexible. Your tree
Correct.
branches can shake away without breaking. Um, it's when we become so rigid. No, I want this and it's got to be this way, and these are the people that are going to do it. I guarantee you're going to be on your backside. With that attitude, you're not going to get anywhere. Where it's like, but this is my core belief. This
Yes.
is what I believe I am doing and why I am doing it and whom it serves. Then
Yes.
everything else is just the skills and the tools that you need in order to do that.
Correct. And I think practices will, like I said, inform a routine.
Hmm.
And as you do something on a regular basis, it becomes a routine.
Yes,
However, when it's shaken, because you have practices that you fall back on, you can actually adapt it. The same thing happens in business when you have business practices that are truly serving you, not just, okay, this schedule, this is what we do. Because the moment someone falls off a little bit, the whole day, maybe the week, possibly the month is thrown off until they figure out how to get that routine on. And if their life is interrupting that routine, then you might have a client or a customer issue. Like it could be just or an employee issue because ultimately if you have a employee who cannot get on their routine, or you as a manager, owner of your business, you can't get on a routine that actually can allow you to serve your clients and customers and be present with them, then ultimately you'll see those results and you'll see them in ways that are hurtful. So in businesses, oftentimes businesses are reciprocal relationships. Businesses are solving a problem for a client or a customer that they can't solve themselves in a way that makes it worthwhile for them to pay.
Yeah.
And if businesses forget that, if they forget that their practice is to provide a solution of value to clients, then they're not serving themselves or anyone. Now, it might work short term, but as someone who did restructuring or bankruptcy law, they will end up in bankruptcy.
Mm.
It's one of the key reasons why they face these issues, no matter what fancy motions lawyers write.
Hmm. Mm. In my career, I have found out that I've been quite disruptive, not in a way, that I am the tornado, but in a way that I was the revealer. And I would work with companies, and then most of it would be in customer service in some form or other. And the customer would be saying, but I'm not getting this from the company. I'm not getting that. And I'll go back to my boss. We need to change our practice. They're not getting this. They're feeling frustrated. Oh, that's okay. Just throw them an extra this and they'll calm down. And so there was a few times where I went above the heads because ultimately it's about the customer. And my bosses would be fired and I'd be offered their job. And I go, I don't want their job. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to represent the client, right? And I just want you to serve your client better. And whatever blockages you've got along the way, don't fire him, educate him, right?
Well,
Have him
that's
learn to be step more into the customer service realm rather than, the I've sold this amount this, but who do I sell to? I don't know. I've just got the money in the bank.
right. And it's like, okay, who do you serve? And educating them and creating
Mm,
a process and a practice that actually keeps people in touch with the purpose that they're serving. And I really think, for example, there's a lot of conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I really think the conversation should be about boundaries,
mm.
agency, and trust.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's really a boundary issue that companies have sometimes with employees, with customers, and then boundary issues that employees have with themselves. So then they allow employers to take advantage of them. And then sometimes they may not actually be doing what they need to do. And
Hmm.
then that system of agency. Agency comes from having knowledge, training, options, and with wealth systems in particular, finances are options, how the systems work. So we can choose what we think will work best for us now and position us for later. That's agency,
Yeah,
having that knowledge and then knowing examples of how this could work, that and then being able to say, okay, how can I fit this in with my life?
mm,
Maybe I need to play around with this thing and that thing. That's all I can handle at the moment. I can't do everything. That's
right.
okay. But I have a storehouse of tools that I can always refer back to. Just because you have a toolbox doesn't mean you pull out every tool at
No,
once. You pull out the tools you need. And then you change them out, replace them, and then take out different tools at the appropriate time.
exactly.
And then trust goes both ways, my ability to trust myself and then the trustworthiness of others.
Hmm.
And that's that open line of communication. If you ask me, the real issue that employers face that really will kill any business is a lack of having boundaries, agency, and trust, both with business overall for its customers, but also with its employees and management systems. And then not creating agency in its employees and creating a system where employees can trust what they're doing will be valued, as well as trust that they're working towards something positive.
I think one of the big things we need to take out of business is ego. You can be proud and tall for an accomplishment, but when we step into that ego, well, what do you mean it didn't work? It should work. No, we're going to do it again. Instead of going, oh, why didn't it work? Maybe if we pivot this way,
Mhm.
right? And it's not saying, oh, I'm a failure, I'm wrong. It's just saying, okay, it didn't work that way. Let's try another way. But very often things become stagnant and people become crippled because the insecure ego comes in.
Yes.
Why didn't it work? I'm a failure. What are people going to think? Da, 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 da. No, we've got to do it this way again. And it's no, the old adage, do things over and over again in the same way, get expecting different results, and it ain't gonna happen. So I think sometimes for some people, it's hard for them to go, okay, I need to go into the toolbox and look for a different tool. And maybe I'm not quite sure what I'm looking for, but when I see it, I'll understand and
Yes.
be willing to explore. Because if we're not exploratory, we're not growing.
That willingness to explore is key
Mm,
because even if you don't know what the tool is, you're like, I don't know what the correct tool is, but they're willing to explore. That means if someone's around who knows tools, they'll be like, hey, you know tools. Can you explain what this is for?
mhm.
Can you
Yeah.
help me? I need a tool that does X.
Yes.
I you start to ask people for the assistance that you need. And so that willingness to explore does everything. And the reality is most people have ego as a cover for their insecurities. So what they're trying
Hmm.
to do is coat their what is really a liability as an asset. And like I said, assets are always associated with the liability. The thing that makes it generate value for someone is whether or not you're using it in a positive way or a negative way.
Yeah.
So it can either dig you into a further hole or it can propel you. And so ego
Mm.
oftentimes is good in the sense of, are you actually confident?
Yes.
Because if you're always second guessing yourself and you can never get comfortable in something, you do have to question whether or not it is a good fit for you.
Yes.
And, but ultimately, if you have a certain level of confidence and yet you feel empowered by what you do, you're always willing to approach a conversation, for example, with a customer who's giving you feedback and saying, I need X, and say, hmm, I thought it was this, but by listening to you, I gave myself room to be wrong.
Mm.
That's committing to creating a trusting environment because I'm committed to listening and hearing you out. Now, I can have a boundary where I can still think it's X, Y, and Z, but let me actually hear you out because
Yes.
now I gave myself room to be wrong. So there's agency here. I have information that I did not have before. I have the ability to make a different decision. And this is another reason why I say, really, for businesses and for people in business relationships of any kind, it all comes down to boundaries, agency, and trust.
Yeah. Three wonderful words, because we need that boundary in our life, in our work life. It's our limit. It's our energy limit. I can't give
Yes,
any more energy beyond that because
correct.
otherwise that's stretching me too thin. That trust factor, we have to trust in ourselves to believe that we know we're not going to get it right all the time, but the willingness to go, okay, that didn't work. What will? The what,
Exactly.
not the what if, but the what if,
What
right?
if? Right. The
Right?
curiosity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's the beauty about a boundary is boundaries are not like this whole crazy gate and announcement, I have a
Yes.
boundary here.
Right.
It's you can open the gate.
Hmm.
That's that willingness and space to be wrong and invite someone in. And ultimately, I totally agree that if people say, hey, I cannot go beyond this, this is what I can do, I'm offering you a solution. Now you have the space to say, that will work for me or that won't. It creates a dialogue.
Yeah.
And then that creates a negotiation. And when people negotiate, they have the opportunity to collaborate. It's not a
Right.
competition anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. There's two words I don't like, compare and compete. Now, when it comes to you leave the competition to the Olympics, right? And if you're having a game, you're competing. But when it comes into people, don't compare yourself to anyone else. You are
Agree.
unique, although you may adapt
Yes.
other people's skills or things that they do because they're relatable to you. And you can integrate them into who you are because they've expanded you, right? But don't compete and compare in that way. And I think there is no one size that fits all. And sometimes you're going to pick up a tool and go, I have no idea what this is. Can I even use it? Do I know which end is up? And then you're willing to do the investigation of how to use it. And then it comes second nature. You look into that toolbox. I've got X, Y, and Z tool. Which one really would apply right now? This one. I haven't never used this one before. How about I give it a try and see what it can do? But if we don't have that exploration and that willingness to try a different angle, right?
Yes,
That's kind of the agency of owning my limitations. And how do I go beyond my limitations to seek out help from other people? What am I not seeing? What
right.
am I not seeing? How can you help me see it and how I use it?
Exactly. And so ultimately, with people, if they're not seeing things differently, it's going to be hard to change anything if you're not willing to take a step back. Sometimes anyone who's ever been in like a situation where they're driving and all you see, if you don't look ahead on your GPS, all you see in front of you are just trees, etc. You're just driving on that lone road, or all you see are planes. You have no idea when you're getting to the highway. You have no
Mm,
idea on where you might know your general trajectory, but if you haven't actually set a course, you're just driving. And
yes,
that's great, that's dandy, but in business there is an aim.
there
And
is.
so
There's different words just gone over there somewhere. But uh, still not coming, but I'll try and get around it in different ways. There are different stages that we
yes,
go through. A lot of people are aiming for the finish line. And
yes,
it's like, yes, well, that's your ultimate goal that you would like to achieve. But if you go one step, two step, three step along the way, when you get to a destination, because it shouldn't be the one, a destination, you're going to realize by taking this one, two, three step and being conscious of every step I've taken, my destination and what I thought it was going to be is even greater because I allowed my step one step at a time.
exactly. And it's like, okay, pick the dream that you can find now,
Mm,
go for the biggest stream you can find now, and
mhm.
then back your way into different goalposts, almost like if you were taking a road trip and you have different pit stops or rest
Yeah.
stops. But when you go to those pit stops and rest stops, please don't pick the truck stop. Pick the city that has like the small town where you can ask somebody
Yes.
where to
Yes.
go within the city. Oh, what's the greatest food here? Can you tell us what should
Yeah.
we try while here?
Yeah.
Now you have an experience with it. And I
Mm.
think oftentimes when
Connection.
people that connect, yet again,
Mm.
that connection. But oftentimes when people set goals, and particularly business and financial goals, we set the rigid goal where
Yeah.
we only do the truck stop. You don't do the scenic route and say, I can just stop in this small town. And I'd have no idea about anything in a small town, but it is on the way. But I can connect with more people. I can learn about a different spot nearby me or nearby this location and have a whole experience. But I'm receptive because when I
Yeah.
ask somebody, where should I go? What's exciting here? They're going to tell me what they think is exciting. Now, it
Yes.
may or may not excite me,
Hmm.
but that invites me to ask, okay, that's exciting. I also like X, Y, and Z. What else? But I'm getting information and I'm creating a two-way street. I think that is probably one of the biggest cures for ego. Instead of thinking, I know,
Yeah.
I can find out.
I don't care how big you are, how rich
You
you
don't
are.
know.
There's always something you don't know, right? And how do they get to that point is because if they don't know, they assign somebody to find out.
I will tell you, as a licensed attorney, I've worked with some of the greatest minds, and they always are consulting with people
Hmm.
on things that they're doing. And for me, I'm always researching things. I'm always having to talk to people because the more I find out I do know,
Hmm.
the less I know.
Right.
And that's because I discover things like, okay, the things I know, I'm very confident that I know. But the things that I discover, well, that's more to learn. There's more than I even realized. And so that's an opportunity to expand. And then my skills grow as a result of it. Good things come out of it. Now, granted, it's like that uncomfortable moment of like, oh my goodness, there's so much to learn here.
Yeah.
Everyone experiences that. And I experience it. I don't care how smart people think I am. I'm not that smart where I'm just not overwhelmed by something in the moment. But then I breathe, I count to 10. I might have to journal a little bit, but then I can rely on the fact that if I've learned one thing in life, I can learn. I can learn something new. It may take me a little bit, but I'll learn it.
That's a really great attitude. I'm always drawing the analogy of, I became the tortoise when I used to be the hare. I would have a vision. I'd want to see it being put together. Come on, folks, come on, enthusiasm, enthusiasm. Let's build it, let's do it. But I wasn't the builder, right? And so I didn't get to that finish line because I didn't have the right people to build it, to do this, to do that. I had the enthusiasm and the vision, but I didn't
Yes.
have the right people for the bricks and mortar, so to speak. And so by being a tortoise, it's like you're taking the unscenic, the scenic route. I've got to know people along the way that when I need somebody with a certain tool, I know where they are. I've already had that relationship. I can pick up the phone, drop them an email. And it's so much more pleasurable because you're truly getting to know people at the root level. And it's never a waste of time. It's an investment of your time because
Yes.
it's something you've learned, just the upliftingness of it, just the sheer thing of those beautiful people in the world. But you never know who's going to share a nugget that becomes, whoa, yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to integrate that. You don't know when it's coming unless you participate. So
Exactly.
we're not a horse running the race with the blinkers on, full steam ahead, right?
Well, we live in a society where we have a lot of instant conveniences, and that's
Yes.
not a bad thing. But back in the day, people would farm more. My
Mm.
grandparents used to have a garden, so I have at least some familiarity with farming and the fact that we planted seeds. Some of
Yes,
the
yes.
seeds fortunately went where they were supposed to go and they came up and we had nice watermelons and corn. But some of the seeds, they just blew in the wind somewhere. They didn't quite make it. But you never know where they get picked up. You never
Yeah.
know how that's going to work out. And so for me, people have given time and energy to me to help me grow and develop. I always try to be, I'm always trying to give time, give what I can to people. Now I have to set limits on that to preserve me and my capabilities, but at the same time, I'm I think it's a good practice that people, instead of looking for what they can get from others, that they look for how they can give.
Yes, 100%. Giving is receiving, actually. The more you give, you receive such pleasure back from making a difference to someone's life by, giving them a tool that's going to be better for them. It's so gratifying,
It
right?
is.
And that gratification of that what you have done has had a positive impact is that love currency again, right?
It's a
I
job
love to
well
see
done.
these kind of results. Exactly. And you can feel it in your whole body, in your heart, and everything. And you go, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing,
Yes.
right? Mhm.
That moment where you're just like, this is everything.
Mhm.
This is what I hoped for. It's more than what I hoped for.
Yeah.
It's wow, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I
Mhm.
had something to do with this.
Mhm.
That is such a powerful moment that only people who have a giving presence and thought process can receive.
Mhm.
And the reality is, you can get all the money in the world and still not get that feeling. And
Oh boy,
nothing
do
will
we
ever
have a
be.
few examples of that out in the world right now? Yeah. Doesn't matter how much money they've got, they're still, you know, the egotic, to a lot of point, narcissist child inside, unwilling to look at that child and nurture the child. And no matter how rich they get, it will never be enough because they
It's a
haven't got the love currency, the love of self, the love of their passion. It's all driven by money and power.
Yes, it's the scorecard that can never be big enough. It needs to turn
Exactly.
into a scroll.
Yes.
And now, granted, I do think people who give will find themselves with a scroll of wins by virtue of the fact that they do give.
Yeah.
And they're not looking for it, they're not
No.
fighting for the scroll. It's not about that. They just happen to give that. And there are plenty of people like, as much as we can dissolve society into power and control and everything, that is a reality. There's a lot of corruption out there. But
Huge.
one of the things that I got the opportunity to experience was particularly by working in a family office, particularly by seeing and interacting with some wealthy families and people, is the ones who, there are plenty of them who are really quiet. They don't want to tell people what they know. They don't want to tell people that they have wealth because they enjoy life. They enjoy being an everyday person.
Yeah.
And
Who just
th-
happens to have a lot of money.
they just happen to have it. And they've done some amazing things and they
Mhm.
feel really fortunate that they've had that opportunity. And people don't get to know those people in that respect because they don't realize, hold on, wait, this person's a billionaire.
Yeah.
they don't they don't actually recognize that that's who they're talking to. And they don't give this information out, not because they're selfish in a bad way. They're afraid, one, some things that if people mishandle it, they can hurt
Mm.
themselves with. Like every good thing, too much of a good thing is bad. It's like
Yeah.
we get great food, it's nurturing, but overeat and become a glutton. and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you have other issues.
Yes.
So ultimately, knowing how to give the information in a way that one wouldn't damage the connections that they do have, and then two would set people up for success is a really fine line that for people to navigate. So oftentimes it's not people, wealthy people aren't sharing this not because they don't want to see other people succeed, not because they're holding back, but because they know that there's risks that if people, for example, if there's a lot of internet noise about the tax code and what people can and can't do, the reality is oftentimes what people are saying could be right within context, but they're not giving you that context and people go off and do these things.
Mhm.
Or some things are just dead wrong.
Yeah.
And so wealthy people know that many of these things are right within context and they know how they used it, but every person could use it differently. And if they haven't seen enough examples, they're not going to give that advice. They can only give you the advice on how they've used it.
Yeah.
And to the connection piece, they don't want to be judged as if
Hmm.
they're a part of the power struggle and all the other, takeover of society, the oligarchy, whatever word you want to put on them. They're just like, I just want to raise my kids and go on a nice vacation too and make sure that, I can say hello to my neighbors without having paint thrown at me.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, they're not like, some of them are some of the kindest people we've ever met. And
Mm.
yes, they have money too, but they also have their lives together. But there are plenty of people who have money and their lives are not together. And those are the people who you often see the power struggles with. I personally prefer when people think about a wealth system that they think of it holistically. They
Yes,
think of it
yes,
about
yes.
creating an authentic life and
Hmm.
using wealth building tools to fulfill that life.
Yeah,
And so if they're not doing it that way, I don't think they're building it sustainably.
I agree with you. The enrichment of self is our abundance. When we're enriched on who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, the because, and we're here to help other people is our enrichment, and that abundance in all fields will come to you because of that. When we do have, I've interviewed a couple of millionaires that were defending being kind of in that 1%, but you don't understand. Our taxes pay this and pay that and pay this and pay that. But what they don't understand is everyday Joe sees them being a millionaire or a billionaire, and they don't see the seeding of opportunity for other people who, especially today, we're at an oxymoron. We have more ways to achieve things today through the internet than we ever did. Yet we also have more blockages in achievement, of people having the finances to back an idea, to start something, to develop something, because everybody online is developing something and they get lost in the crowd. So it's easier in one way and more difficult in the other.
Well, the easier things get, the harder it is to overcome the blockages because ultimately we get used to things being easy. We don't
Mhm.
develop muscles. So one of my favorite workouts is something that I started off horrendously bad at. I do aerial exercises.
Yeah.
I'm not as good as a Cirque du Soleil performer at all, but after several years of doing it, I am getting to the point where I could do, a performance for friends.
Nice.
So, but when I started, I couldn't do a pull up. I did not know my body had quote lateral muscles going down my back from my shoulders. What do you mean? Those things did not exist.
Mhm. Oh
Those
boy,
muscles,
do they after the workout, right?
I discovered them. You mean that thing that's really paining me right now?
Yeah.
That's like it has a lot to say.
Yes.
So my muscles are a lot to say to me. They have complaints, they have protests, all kinds of things. When I discovered that, well, now those muscles are being used and they have to be developed. So ease,
Mhm.
just I love dancing, I like walking, but I needed to add some resistance. I needed something, particularly with the long hours that I work, that okay, if I did it once a week, maybe twice, I could break even. I won't destroy myself. Won't gain anything. That was the aerial workouts. It was better than me taking a bunch of dance classes. I just didn't have the time. I'm not someone who likes to, go jogging. Shin splints kill me. I have I can find all kinds of reasons not to do something, but I was like, I'm going to work out. I'm going to take care of me. What is the thing that is going to allow me to do this? and that was aerial. But I had to develop muscles that had not prior, they did not exist. Like they may have been present, but they did not exist. They were
They didn't have a
underdeveloped.
say. They didn't
They
have a
did not.
say. So,
And
I mean, that, that's metaphoric for, opportunities in life, right? Stepping into something where you're going to feel the pain, but without the pain, there ain't no gain, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you develop the muscles for it. And
Yes.
the ease of our society, what I definitely want to go back to is the fact that it leaves people's creativity, business,
Mm,
opportunity muscles, their agency muscles
hmm
underdeveloped. The
hmm
convenience of it, unless they actively seek to learn about the options and then choose one that works for them. Okay, like with workouts, there are thousands of workouts anyone can do. You don't, you're like, I don't like working out. Find something that does not feel like a workout.
Right.
That's the goal. It's not to torment yourself. It's to find something that, okay, if this is slightly tormenting, I enjoy it enough that I'm willing to keep at it and exercise and practice that muscle, develop that muscle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
millionaires, billionaires are seeding opportunities by their investments, but people have to position themselves to take advantage of those seeds so they can sprout
Mm.
in their garden.
So don't wait until the seed opportunity comes along. Prepare by
Prepare.
exercising those muscles that you would recognize the seed and what to do with
Yes.
it when it comes along.
Correct. And then when someone you got now you have the seed, I can recognize it. Now, okay, I don't have water, but you can recognize someone who does.
Hmm
And then someone who does have water and they have water to give, well, they can give you the water that you need and then they keep going their way. Well, now it's watered. And then maybe some of the sky, the sun comes out, water, rain, you get that. And then eventually it grows. And I think people have to recognize the same thing. Don't wait until something happens for you,
Yes.
but recognize, let me keep going in a direction where something could happen. And then
Prepare.
prepare, have a
Yeah.
strategy, and then
hmm
I can implement these things at the appropriate time.
Exactly. Um, I'm not a person who prepares very well. Part of my ADD, I think, and dyslexia, very organic in the moment. So I've learned I can't prepare like that. How can I prepare in a way that I can be engaged with and pay attention to? And so I've learned to find certain things that work for me because I get it and I don't overlook it. Like I'm not seeing it, right? I'm prepared to do it. Um, but also at the same time, doesn't overwhelm my challenges. Because if it overwhelms the challenges, then you start beating yourself up. Why can't you do it? You're useless, down that rabbit hole, right? So there are high achievers out there that, took that seed and made it grow into abundance. That's wonderful. But where are you in their garden? Where are you in your own garden? I might be the park bench that you come and sit and talk to, right? It might be the rose garden, and not everybody has to be the big willow tree. Though I'm a willow tree, that's my favorite tree. But that's the thing is know why. Back to the why you're doing what you want to do with that seed. What are your abilities? Yes, you can push yourself further on that, but don't push yourself into what I call the danger zone, where you are completely out, in the mid-ocean with no life jacket and don't know how to swim back. So I think, again, knowing your limits, push them, but know when you can't push them any further.
There is that. And I think oftentimes that's a delicate balance because I think people oftentimes will choose to not challenge themselves. And I think there's a balance of saying, I'm going to
Hmm
take on more challenge.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, while I take on more challenge, I'm going to like swim. I am a terrible swimmer, but I've always had a fear of water. My mom said when I was a baby, if you wanted to upset me, nothing frazzled me better than a splash of water in my face. And so, um, I would be really cool doing everything, and then you splash water in my face. So
Uh-huh.
ultimately, my undergrad had a rule in order to graduate, we either had to take swim classes or pass a swim test. Clearly, I could not pass a swim test, but I did take the swim class. And I decided to go on a trip once and went snorkeling in the water. Now, what I did is I told everybody I was with, I am not a great swimmer. I'm really here to overcome my fear of water or
hmm
at least give myself what I need to say, hey, I've
I've
done
done
this.
it. Yeah.
Even I may not be the greatest at it, but I've done it.
Yes.
And so I got a swim belt. I fortunately had one of the better types of snorkels, so I could breathe normally, relatively speaking, and it would just go out in the water. So I was able to put my face in the water. I was able to swim. I literally got encircled by a school of fish. It was awesome. Found Nemo.
Mm.
And
How's he doing, by the way?
he was doing really well. Everybody thought I would sink the moment I got encircled by the school of fish, but I was so in the moment, so
Mm.
curious about what was happening and just spinning around and just watching it that and then just swam up. Once they left, I swam out. And it was a beautiful experience, but I had what I needed. I had a belt.
Exactly.
And people were looking out for me. I could see them. And then all I had to do was just wait for that moment,
Yeah.
and then the way cleared, and I didn't sink. I tried it. I swam, and there are moments where I'm a little uncomfortable in water. I'll ask for a life vest. I don't care if it's 4 feet of ocean water. I can
Mm.
feel
Yeah.
the pool, and that's okay for me.
It's okay. That's the point, though, isn't it? You faced your fears,
Yes,
right? You swam.
I did.
You have this incredible memory,
I
all
did.
right, an experience that will be with you forever, but it doesn't
Yes,
mean you have to swim all the time to prove yourself.
I don't. I don't. I don't care if it's 4 feet of water. I literally was on a trip and like, it's 4 feet. I was like, I guarantee you there are spots out there that are deeper than four. And I'm not that tall. Um, also, 4 feet is basically 90% of my body. So
Mm.
that's a lot as far as I'm concerned in a given a whole ocean. I have nothing to prove. I just want to be out
Yes.
there with everybody else who's splashing around. And I need this to have a good time. And
Ex-
being able to advocate for myself, say what I
Yes.
need to have a good time, and prevent myself from feeling like I'm going to drown. And that's the big thing. Like I explored enough. I got into the ocean.
You overcame a fear,
I
which
did.
means next time a fear comes up, you can look at it and go, I faced you before, right? I can face you again. And then go in, listen in, to the soul, heart, and spirit compass. What do I need to do? The head will have the epiphany, the head will have the clarity. Don't try and
Yes.
do it from the head. I guarantee it will go wrong. You've got to listen to the other sources. But then you'll be looking at fear and go, it's dissolved because it was there as a blockage. Now, I've got a thing about fear, common sense fear, is there to
Some fear is
protect you.
healthy. It's
Very
healthy.
healthy. It stops you from dying or doing something stupid. Pay attention to it. But this fear of the unknown, which so many people are so fearful of the unknown, but they don't know what they're fearful of because it's unknown, right? Instead of going fear of the unknown, go excitement of wonderment. What lies ahead? Common sense fear travel with me. Let me know if I'm going off course, right? I'm going to listen to you, but let's go and
Yes,
explore together.
correct. And so I definitely distinguish between the healthy fear and unhealthy fear, the
Mm,
same way I distinguish between, fear of the unknown and taking on a challenge and then drowning yourself. They're
mhm.
two very different things.
Yeah.
Someone who decides to take set sail on a boat with no sails, no life vest into a hurricane after the announcement.
Yeah. I think
Ultimately,
you're asking for trouble.
you might be. You might be. Right? So there's that. But
Well, that
okay,
that
but
person has something to prove, though.
they have something to prove.
Yeah.
And they could take other people out with them because
Yes.
if because of that approach. But somebody who's like, okay, I want to get out in the ocean. I know I'm not the greatest swimmer, but ocean water is actually salt water. So if you relax, you're more
Yes.
buoyant in ocean water than you are in fresh water, meaning technically, despite the depth, if I prepare correctly, I am less likely to drown in ocean water just under certain conditions. Now,
Yes.
not every condition, but certain
No.
conditions. So you set yourself up for success. And I think part of that is getting people into the spirit of play. I can get in the
Yeah.
water, but I've also given myself a way of getting out of the water.
Yes.
Um, and then just
I
play
know
with
what
it.
to do when it starts getting a bit rough. Lay on your back, completely relax, and the water will carry you. Right.
Exactly. And so developing those tools and
Hmm.
knowing that they exist, that's that optionality again, which allows someone to have, they can't control the ocean, but they have agency. I can lay on my back and just
Hmm.
relax and let the water carry me. And, it
Make sure
is
the
the
tide
ocean.
is coming in and not
Make
going
sure
out.
exactly. Exactly. So there are steps I can take. Timing is everything, of course. But I mean, and there are times where people are going to take that big risk. There are.
Yeah,
We see people do it all the time and it's rewarding. But I think you really need a strong why if you're
mm,
going to do something like that. It can't be ego because it's
right,
not going to be strong enough. And then it can't be for external validation because I guarantee you no one can validate you enough.
right.
And you may not have
Or
anyone to validate
adoration,
you.
you know.
Right. No
Yeah.
adoration, no
Mm,
applause. And ultimately, there may not be anyone to applaud you. You might
yeah.
have to learn to applaud yourself in those
Yeah.
circumstances. So there is a healthy balance. There is a certain level of wealth that comes with the challenge of going off into the deep end. But I do believe that most people can build out decent levels of wealth without going into the deep end, just by playing with challenging themselves and then figuring out what works for them. And
Yeah.
that's enough
Well, I mean,
for
that is the key of the 1%, isn't it? You know,
for
they've
most of them.
they've got something they're going after. I mean, the case of like Steve Jobs or Microsoft or many of these things, they stepped into the unknown
Yes.
and they were willing to explore what else can it do? What else can it do? And pushing the limits and pushing the limits. And this is why we have technology in our wrist today that can do everything. And soon the chips coming, which will do everything for you too. I mean, the technology has just gone so fast, but it started from people that were investigative and intrigued enough. Are
Yes.
you intrigued in what you are doing and its impact? Are you investigative of how else you can better your skills? Right? How
Correct.
much are you driven by the passion of wonderment as to what it could be?
Exactly. And then you leverage the things that allow you to invest. So, like, tax is really a tool that allows people to reinvest in what they
Right.
care about. It is a system of rules. Oftentimes, people will quote just one rule, but sometimes it's a system of rules, and you have to understand them and how they work together. But you're learning this world the same way
Mm,
Steve Jobs, he, went for the deep end in technology, but he also had to learn a lot about how it works, whether or not he was the one doing the work.
yeah.
He had to appreciate what went into the work. And it had to be important enough with him to insist that they went for it, that they got it done. And sometimes under some tight deadlines.
Yeah.
And having that sense of urgency within something, but also understanding how something works is really key. And I think for entrepreneurs, oftentimes, I think there are two extremes.
Mm.
People don't delegate and they want to do it all. And sometimes they feel like they can't afford to delegate, but maybe you can't afford not to delegate.
Hmm.
But then there are some people who want to delegate everything and not learn the ins and outs enough
Hmm.
to be able to manage, maintain, or operate what they're doing. And certain areas of our businesses are relatively foreign to us. The bookkeeping, for some people, is second nature, but for others of
Yeah.
us, it's like it makes your head spin. But you need to know enough about it because you're the one who's accountable for it. And
Hmm.
oftentimes, with businesses and people, you explore the deep end, you learn enough, and then you thrive where you thrive and build that ecosystem that supports you.
Yeah. I call that the conductor of the orchestra.
Yes,
Each person has
exactly.
brought their instrument that they've discovered and that they've perfected, and they've brought it to the collective orchestra, but they have to work together in harmony. And the conductor is the one to bring about that fluidity to make sure everybody's essence is really shown. And he may not play every instrument, but boy, he is the instrument. He's an instrument unto his own, or she, and even nowadays, little kids, because I've seen it on YouTube. Uh, and the whole thing is that they know how the instruments work and they know how to bring out the best of those instruments. That is a true leader,
It
somebody who
is.
knows how to manage people and bring out the best of who they are and what they can do so it benefits the whole orchestra.
Correct. And their ear is an
Mm.
instrument, their
Yes,
sense of sound.
yes.
Beethoven eventually went deaf in his
Mm.
life and couldn't hear, but the vibrations from the sound was something that he could feel
And he could hear it in his head because he
and he could
understood
hear it.
music, And music to a lot of people, I interview musicians a lot. One of my guilty pleasures, because they're already in heart and soul, and I love music, is that the music is constantly playing in their head.
Yes,
And it might just be a repetitive or a bit here and there, and they write it down, or all of a sudden it then comes into a full picture, the full, the full choir. And that's the thing, the music is in them, whether it's, they're speaking it, humming it, or anything, it's there. So
exactly.
whatever you're doing in your work, is it something that's always playing in your head in a way, oh, we could do this, we could do that, I could do this, I could do that, and allowing, I love it when you get people around the table in a creative source and they all pile, what if we do this, what if we do that, and all of a sudden you're in the stratosphere and
Yes,
everybody's excited. Okay, now how do we reverse engineer this to make this possible, or something out of it possible? But if we
correct.
don't allow people to feel safe enough to bring their creativity, however ridiculous it may sound, it builds and it builds and it builds. And from there, you've got something that you can actually do.
Agree. And then you don't have, and that's the biggest thing that gets people. And that's one of the biggest parts about fear. Fear makes people think, I'm going to set a goal to run a marathon. I have to be able to run a marathon tomorrow. Well, maybe it might take you, some people can train for a marathon because they've been running 10Ks. So
Yes.
they can actually get to a marathon in a few months. But if you have never run a 400-meter race, you're going to have to start somewhere.
Yes.
Let's
Those
start with,
muscles haven't been activated.
they have not. And it's okay to say, you know what? I'm going to start with the 400 meters and then I'm going to run 800 and then move up
Step
to
by
a
step,
mile,
step by
step
step,
by
step by
step.
step. Yeah.
And it's okay that it doesn't, the vision does not come together. As someone I'm an artist at heart, I've drawn and painted and done mosaics. I loved mosaics in particular because as an artist, we always want to get that picture finished. It's in our
Yes.
head. We want to get it out on
Yes.
paper. We want to, and you want to do it in a few hours to a few days because you sit there like a maniac until it's done. You don't want to
It's,
ingest
it's
anything.
downloading. It's downloading it, right? Yes.
It is. But what I love, like for me, doing mosaics, I did that in college. It was one of the best gifts because I did not have the time to just, I had classes, I had needed to study. I did not have the time to just spend hours at a painting or a drawing. So with mosaics, with the grout and some of the glues that you would use, you have to let them dry. So I could only put a few pieces down at a time. And I had to let them go and then come back, put more pieces down, let it dry, and do that in succession. I think the same thing as building life and financial goals.
Yeah.
You have that big picture, you put a few pieces down, let it dry, put a few more pieces down, let it dry, and keep coming back to it. And in this, in the case of mosaics, it took a few weeks. I'd have a whole full fledged picture. And with finances and stuff, oftentimes you can turn a whole situation around within a couple of years.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, depending on how far you are from it, 2 to 7 years really is what people need. And if they're doing well enough, it probably won't even take that.
Right.
And people are probably oftentimes doing somewhat better than what they expect. They
I lived with a woman who's 91 now, and she would do puzzles, and she could do 1,000-piece puzzle every week. And her strategy, she would separate all the colors, she'd separate all the edges, and then it would be working on, the outskirts, and then this color and then that color to let the picture come in, and she would be lost in it. And as soon as it's done, I would take a picture of it and of it crumble up onto the next. Uh, for her, it was the process, it wasn't the end goal, the picture, it was the process, almost meditative. And I think
yes,
if we look at the one step, two step, cha cha cha, and get rhythmic with it, the picture that we're building along the way, sometimes it results in a different vision. But
it
without
does.
that vision to aim for,
You
that's
wouldn't
the
have found it.
thing. Exactly. And that vision to aim for, do not forget, God laughs at your plans, right? That doesn't mean that's what you're meant to do. They've just given you a vision to work towards, but all that has happened in that step by step creates an application and a vision that transcends what you thought it would be.
The detours are the playground for a
Mm.
bigger vision. And the reality is, the people don't realize this. They want goals that are hard to reach because the sooner you reach goals, the sooner you have to set a new one. You want to enjoy the process
Yes.
because ultimately that moving goalpost is disturbing for people,
Hmm.
particularly when you get to a point where you hit all the goalposts you can think of and there's nothing else to aim for. That's a very hard place to be. And so allowing that process to inform you, and then you'll see where it fits into a bigger picture. That 1,000 piece puzzle is equipping you with the tools for the 5,000, which may
Hmm.
have that scene in it,
Yeah.
but it's more expansive
Yes.
than what people realize. I think that is really the gift in everything. And
Patience and persistence.
yes,
Nothing's
yes.
going to come to you overnight. Believe me, I've been doing this 11 years. Nothing's going to come to you overnight.
Yep.
When I put this book out, Our Forgotten Children, which is all about children and investing in our kids, where I feel we're going so very wrong, systems have to be changed. I was given that idea 5 years ago, and I was always looking for the right people. And when it was right for me to do it, because the universe told me it's right to do it, all the people I thought that were going to be in it had retired or moved on or done something else. And yet all the people I started interviewing on their own projects were perfect for the book.
Well, there you go.
So the book, the idea of the book and what it stood for, that was the main goal. How do I get that out? How it came about, with whom I allowed and
Yes,
I received.
exactly. And if you weren't flexible about who could
Mm,
be a part of this project with you, then you would have said, well, I guess I'm not meant to do it.
exactly.
And then you shut down the opportunity for yourself. And maybe you weren't meant to do it at that time.
Exactly.
Maybe, maybe this book is a part of something bigger. I'm someone who set the dream. When I was a kid, I told my parents, they asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, an artist or a lawyer. And they're like, okay, how do we get you to be the lawyer? And I said, well, if I have a work put in an art gallery, I'll consider myself an artist. So then I can be the lawyer because
Hmm.
then I can be both.
Exactly.
And
Why can't you be both? The lawyer that
right.
paints.
Well, I kid you not, within a year, I won an art contest, a countywide children's art contest. And they put the winning work into the children's art gallery that they were opening.
Lovely. There
I
you
was an
go.
artist. So then
I
I
said,
aimed for being a lawyer.
right.
And then I became a lawyer. And I never set the goal to be partner. I wanted to learn. I wanted
Mm,
to learn. Lawyers knew so much. I wanted to learn how the world worked. I felt like lawyers actually knew and had the keys to that. I wasn't wrong there.
hmm.
And ultimately, but I had to find a new goal
Mm,
because I was like, okay, partner route was never something that I said I want to do that, but I did want to practice law. I did want to be a lawyer. I wanted to learn and understand things. I had the opportunity to do that, but over time, I just had to explore. And this is where I think being playful is really
yes.
important because my love of video games, my love of writing, my love of art, my love of a number of things allowed me to look at different ways of seeing things that I was doing, seeing the world, seeing where this plugged in. I'm looking at deals that were done for publishing companies. I'm looking at deals that are done for, services companies for products. And then I'm looking at, okay, when things go bad, this is what happens. When things go well, this is what happens. Someone asked me in the middle of all this to do a project with working with real estate professionals because they wanted me to focus on distressed real estate. I'm like, I'm a first generation college student. I know nothing about real estate. I mean, yeah, my family, we've always wanted a home. We've lost it, but that's the extent of my knowledge. Well, instead of taking that and saying, I can't do that, I have no
Mm,
background in it, I said, well, I don't have a background in it. So let me find the people who do. And so then I went to hang out with them and ask them questions and just started hanging out in sources. And, you know, there were shows that talked about real estate, etc. I just started digesting them and then
mhm.
getting around the real guys and asking them questions. And one day they were just telling me what they did. And I was just like, hold on, wait, is this why we're doing this in law? And we're facilitating this.
Yes.
I got the big picture. I
Hmm.
probably look like an anime character falling out of my desk that day, but ultimately, it was one of those things where I
The light
finally
bulb went
understood.
on.
It
Mm,
did, but I
mm,
understood what we were doing. But it came about from me saying, I'm going to make a game out of getting to know people. I'm
right.
an introvert. I love people. I don't like how the weather's going conversations
Right.
can we have. I can do 1 to 2 layers of them and then I'm done.
Exactly.
And it's like, let me get to know you. I'll let you get to know me. No spikes, no hedgehogs, claws retracted. I'm a domesticated house cat. And um I do purr, I say hello to new people. I'm loyal to my own, but and I like to play. So let
Mm.
me get to know and then you get to know me. And let's have that exchange. And it was valuable. It was beautiful.
Yes.
Light bulbs went off everywhere. And I really saw it was really there were 4 key steps that
Mm.
ultimately, in every system, does not matter what it is, it's just how they're implemented. And understanding, okay, how my mind works, investing in myself, having that fortitude, purposefully, that mindset mastery, right? But then understanding my gifts, appreciating them. Those are that's your cash flow vehicles. And
Yes.
it's not cash in the sense
Mm.
relationships are cash. These are things of value. It's really
Yeah.
a value system and a
Hmm.
way of generating value. And then having a tool such as a tax code that multiplies it, and then understanding how to de-risk boundaries, whether you're using legal tools to do so or personal interaction tools, such as saying thank you, but no thank you.
Yes.
um,
And
those
I
are
know
the
that the thing with tax, thank you, no, thank you. I don't want to pay that much, right? So,
It doesn't quite
I
work
mean,
that way sometimes. It depends on what you do and how you did it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, tax is one of those things is that you know that it's going to be taken for you because it's meant to keep your community going, but at the same time, then we see where it's going and we feel powerless, and we feel, do we really want to pay that for that? And then you do see that 1% not paying their share, and if they all paid a couple more, interest, my God, the amount of fuel that
It
it
may
would inspire. But it's how do we not get around tax? It's not that we begrudge paying tax if it was going where we wanted it to be, but everybody
correct.
needs that something of understanding. I don't want, you know, um, the government to get so much from me. So it's all learning those tricks of the trades, isn't it?
It's learning the tricks of the trade. And then on top of learning the tricks of the trade, what the wealthy people are doing is they're directing their money that they would pay in tax into things that they actually find more worthwhile. They're saying Congress isn't getting a budget done. So
Hmm.
I'm going to take the tax break here to reinvest in infrastructure.
Yeah.
And what we don't get is we don't see that. We don't have that visibility.
Hmm.
So we can build in these ways. Now, there are some times where people do take advantage of this stuff. I'm not going to lie and say that does not happen,
Hmm.
but because that would be a lie.
Yes, that would be a definite lie.
um, but there are plenty of people who are saying, okay, the tax code allows me to reinvest in my community this way. The problem is those wealthy people aren't in every community. So
Exactly.
that wealth isn't trickling to every
Hmm.
community. And we're supposed to rely on our government to fill that gap. And oftentimes they're not. So the question is how do regular people learn these tools enough to be able to say, okay, the government's not redirecting here. I find value in redirecting here. And not only can I give here, but I can give in a way that also shores me up and sustains me
Hmm.
because there are tools that do that. So I can be more giving. It's one thing when I have so many assets. If I give these things, then I have to rebuild in
Yeah.
order to maintain me. It's another thing where I can give and I get enough back from that gift. It's not everything I gave, but I get enough back that I'm not worried about giving it.
Hmm.
And then I use that, and then I can keep building from where I'm at and keep that process going so then I can be more giving over time.
Yeah.
And I think that approach is a very healthy approach. And there are plenty of wealthy people who do that, but there
Hmm.
are plenty of wealthy people who don't. And I honestly, personally believe that the tax code itself incentivizes people to partner with the government. And if people understand it, the problem is it's so complex. So people don't even have the basis on how to
Hmm.
navigate it. And
Hmm.
so it's one of those things where only the rich people, you know, they hire people like me. There was an
Yes.
army of us. They have them
Right.
at their disposal. And so for me, I'm like, I'm someone who actually, as a kid, struggled to learn. Found out later I had learning differences.
Hmm.
Didn't know it until grad school. And that was
Yeah.
because people said no computers in class. Every workaround I'd ever built, for some odd reason, they banned it in their classrooms. And I was just like, what? I'm trying to learn. I'm paying all this money. I want to learn.
Yeah.
And so they were like, you're having an abnormal meltdown. And you're asked, but I'm asking for resources to figure out how to learn. How do I navigate this
Hmm.
rule that someone else imposed? So they helped me get tested. And they're like, oh, you have learning differences.
Hmm.
I didn't know, but I learned to teach myself
Yes.
information. I took great notes. And it was because of some of my weaknesses, I struggled to learn, that I gave myself a gift of being able to learn complex things or learn things I did not know. And that allowed me to grow in other ways. So ultimately, with that, it's like people have to recognize yes, wealthy people could give more, but if they're pouring it into a bottomless pit, they're not going to want to.
No.
And our governments, unfortunately, don't always prioritize things in a way that really prioritizes people.
No.
They're they've
Not
lost track.
community. Yeah, they've yeah,
They've lost
they're
touch with that.
absolutely. They're not the thing is if you invest in the people and you support the people, right from the core, right from the ground up, you're supporting communities. There's less crime, there's less paying for people in jail, there's less death and violence, and there is more of I can achieve. And
Correct.
and the more we invest in that, the richer we will be as a society, right?
Yes. And we have to equip people to invest in themselves. And I
Yeah,
think creating a dialogue where people learn one how to invest in themselves, then they can create the environment where more wealthy people, whether it's through contributing more in taxes or not, can help that investment go further.
yeah,
Because wealthy people have money that they need to get moving. They see people making it move, they want to put it there.
yeah,
So, one way or the other, whether it's through the government or not, that interest in and of itself is enough to get that reinvestment. Like, I'm a lawyer, but I've worked in business. What I will say is this: never bring a legal solution to the table where a business solution will suffice. And
mm,
that is where people's reciprocal interests work together. You don't necessarily need a legal solution. The legal solution is the boundary, it's the
mm,
teeth that enforces, that says, okay, if you misbehave, these are the consequences.
hmm.
And both sides have those things in place. That is what the law is and really what it should be.
Accountability.
It's accountability at its best. The
Yes,
problem is it's not always used that way.
right.
So by giving people, my goal is to help people develop that agency, because then they will, the opportunity, whether it's through partnering with government, partnering with investors, or just drawing people to themselves, I believe it will come.
Because of people like you, people who recognize the problem and go, okay, this is where I need to pivot to. This is the direction I need to go in because this is what people really do need for them to grow. When we become the seeds of information for other people and show them how to plant them, how to water, how to nurture them, and there's growth there, that benefits everyone, right? It benefits everyone. We all succeed when each other succeed. So by stepping up and showing people how to apply these tools, knowing their boundaries, how to move forward, how to, um, how the investment of their money and what we should do with it. But most of it is that mindset of I'm building a community. I am building a place where I feel safe and that my customers respect me and I respect my customers and where that's enough, right? I think we'll have a lot more satisfied people around there, but people like yourself are the ones that are doing it. And I love the name too, Pearl Perfection Sister,
Pearlfectionista. Yeah.
Perfectionista, which is great, which is kind of, looking at the pearl we really are.
Yes.
Right? We all
Mhm.
are a beautiful pearl. Some of us might be different colors, different sizes, but we're all that beautiful pearl, and we can put ourselves on a string and be a part of it, that collective, and be a beautiful bunch of pearls. Or we could be in a ring solo.
Yes.
It's all about sharing your beauty, sharing your purity.
It is. And it's not about perfection. It's about getting things fully right because pearls
Yes.
can be shaped in infinite number of ways. Some are
Hmm.
flatter, some are more round, some are asymmetrical, some are all kinds of shapes. And ultimately, despite that, they're a thing of beauty and valuable. And so I want people to recognize that they're valuable in and of themselves, but
Yes.
it does take cultivating, which pearls are cultivated, to grow that value. It's something that happens over time. It is a process. And it's not about being, like I said, perfect.
No.
It's about actually just being in the moment who you are and doing it the best way for you, authentically, and then fitting in the cultivation system to implement that.
If you're always doing it right, it can get boring and not be so fulfilling. When you have
Exactly.
faced the challenges where obstacles or crisis or something has come up and you've worked through them
Yes.
to be above them, and not only that, thrive because of it, then you truly do appreciate in gratitude where you are, who you've become because of it, and now what you can see you need to do. So, I call it that beautiful word called flawsome.
Yes.
We're all flawsome. We've all got flaws and we can be awesome in our flaws. Where the Japanese put their cup back together with gold to make it more valuable, I say, let's put all of those cracks together with love, self-love.
Exactly.
Fill
And
that cup of love and let it run off over.
And here's the other beauty to it. Pearls are formed from irritants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's an irritant that creates the pearl. It's
Yeah,
not this everything goes well for me.
right.
It's I'm working through the challenges and I am actually allowing it to become something beautiful for me,
It's
which
your
is
own bronze, silver, or gold medal, or fourth as Canadians keep coming in. My
exactly.
microscopic second, where they miss out on being, fingertip or whatever. But, even the fourth is something to be proud of
They made it to
because
the grand stage.
exactly, exactly. And nobody gets there. This is why when we see things like competitions or Olympics or this or that, this is their chance for
Yes.
their lifetime of work to show who they are and what they can achieve. And I think just being at the Olympics is already an enormous achievement. And that anyone that gets anywhere near the podium, it's the icing on the cherry on top. But
Yes.
you've given your all and you've done your best, and other people just happen to be better than you at this moment. You don't beat yourself up.
No.
You go, I did my best, and there are good days and bad days,
Yeah.
right?
And that could be a great day. It could have been your
Yes,
best time ever. But you're fourth in the world. Like, are you really going to say how terrible you are?
exactly.
Like, I
Exactly.
mean, it's putting some perspective on it. Now, granted, it may not be where you want it, but let's
Hmm.
find the gift in that. You are number four in this area out of everybody on this planet.
Exactly.
You had a gift. You got to the grand stage. You got to experience something that most people can only watch through TV. You were there on the ground.
Yeah,
Make
exactly.
something of that moment.
And, stand tall on whatever level you get at.
Yes.
There are people that, the beams and fell off the beam or fell off the rings, and do they beat themselves up? You haven't got time. Get back up there. Yes,
Yeah.
you're going to lose a point. Make up that point in some other way. Just keep focused and keep going. Get back up. And what tools can you apply in this moment? And then if you have a fall and something like that, the mindset tool is ignore the fall,
Well,
right?
here's the thing. Your body goes under so much
Mm,
intense training and
mm.
pressure for these events. The same way, like as an attorney, we worked crazy hours. And our minds and bodies are under a lot of physical strain and stress. That's what happens when you are working with the quote best of the best and
Yeah,
you're in that arena. And that is the price you pay to be there. Now you have a decision to make on whether or not this is where you want to stay,
yeah,
and you can only stay there for so long. For many people, there are some people who can just do this for decades.
yes.
Wrestlers or certain types of
Mhm.
athletes have a little bit more longevity than others.
But they start so
um,
young too, right? So they
some
can go 2 or 3 Olympics. Yeah.
exactly, but eventually that will life will change
That door
and
will
life will
close,
evolve.
another one will open, right?
Exactly.
What are you going to
Just
do for the next door?
exactly. So make it beautiful.
Yes. I mean, look at all that you've achieved. Say, even from my own journey, every time you kind of get to a crossroads and things are feeling tough, and you go, all this work and effort, I'm here at this crossroads. I don't know what to do. Stop, pause, take a breath, look behind you. Look how far you've already come. Look how
Yes.
far, how much you've achieved already. With that in mind, now
Yeah.
start seeing where it is you need to move forward. We beat ourselves up over the little things, and it's just take a pause. Look at how far you've come.
Well, like the odds. I look at myself, like the odds of me getting to my undergrad were ridiculously low. I went to an underperforming public school. However, I outperformed my economic status for the SATs, but it wasn't Columbia's standard. But I took the ACT and I got into the mid range, right? So
Mhm,
there was another path. I took the SAT twos and I was hitting the mid ranges on those. So, and I had to practice. I did not have test prep. The
mhm,
odds of me getting into those schools were ridiculously low. And I was that kid. I applied to like 15 different schools because my family was like, we don't know if you'll get into a school. I worked a job. I had, fee waivers for applying to schools because my family just didn't have money. And but I got in.
mhm.
And at the end of the day, I could focus on the fact that there aren't that many people there like me, or I could focus on the fact that, hey, I am here
I'm
and
here for a purpose.
I'm here for a purpose. And
Hmm.
I met some of my best friends on day one. And there were classes that we took together where they would use my notes and then they would tell me what they meant. There were classes where things were more intuitive to me and then I would explain it to them. And it became a reciprocal relationship where we balanced each other out. Some of them went to the top private schools. I didn't I didn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
but I could learn from them. And then there were things that I knew that apparently they could learn from me. And so ultimately, I think if people focus on what they have
Hmm.
and then appreciate that, then they can actually put themselves in a position to grow and utilize those opportunities, those stages, those experiences, even if, you're not the person who's gold medal on the podium. Even
Exactly.
if
Not everybody's meant to be there. I mean, there's also a huge amount of responsibility once you're up there,
you
because now
better
you're
love that
representing
job.
you gotta love that job, and now you're going to be doing the whole, medal tour, and all these people wanting to sponsor you and all of that, and it's all very great, thank you. But at the same time, the expectation now of you, you almost
Yes,
feel that people own you. And so it's like, do you really want to be high up there? Or are you happy in that fourth or fifth place, making a difference without the responsibility and the pressure, of the silver and gold?
exactly, exactly. And like for me, like, okay, great. I worked at some of the best law firms, right? Okay, great. But I had to ask myself, is that job a partner in what I really want?
Yeah,
Because, yeah, I want to learn. But at a certain point, I have to ask myself, is this what I want?
yeah,
And does it serve the life that I want? And I had a conflicting vision of my life versus that life. And it's like other people will feel proud and
mm,
validated, but they can't live my life for me. So the question
right.
is, do you really, if you think you want that life, talk to the people who have it and then decide whether or not you really want that life. You may find out it may be the gift that you were in fourth place,
Hmm.
that you went to
Hmm.
the Olympics, but you
Hmm.
weren't the person who had to do the tours and
Yes.
everything. The fact that you can recede to privacy and no one is on the internet shouting at you for every
Yeah.
decision you make in your business, in your life, and every decision who you choose to love, maybe a gift.
Yes. Yes. You can still get more done. And
And yet you were there.
and yet you were there, you participated. And nothing happens if you don't participate in your own life, if you're not exploratory, if you're not inspired by people along the way, if you get stuck every time you hit a pothole. It's that, okay, I can have a cry and get frustrated to get mad at the moment. I've landed in a pothole. How do I get out of it? That willingness to find the tools. Uh, and so many people get stuck in, oh, why? Why me? And it's like,
Yes.
well, instead, how about how do I get out of this? Right? This is unpleasant. I don't like it, but I don't intend to stay here.
Right.
So what do I do? And so many people get stuck in the staying there, right? Rather than let's embrace, what we can do. And then we generally always find out the reason why behind it. Sometimes we don't. It just is.
Well, some things are just are I think there's always a lesson somewhere. There's a gift somewhere. Sometimes that lesson is to find out that this wasn't for you. That
Exactly.
like that might just be the thing. You tried it on for size. It's like trying on it. I love clothes. It's like trying on an outfit. It looks great on the hanger, and you put it on, and you were ready to be a bombshell, but it was designed for the lift model.
You're right.
It's just not for you, and that's
No,
okay. And I think of that with opportunities. Sometimes the actual lesson is that it's not for you. Sometimes the
exactly.
lesson is there is a gift here, and there is something more, something deeper to explore. Knowing the difference and having the space for that.
And, never begrudge, where you've been because those skills, tools, and everything that you learned, you now take and apply to something that has a deeper meaning for you, that, has become your path. It's not a waste, it's just a redirection, a reapplication.
Yes. And those happier moments, honestly, they're lighter. They carry you up. I think the other part is the energy of it. If you tell yourself that this was such a negative experience because you didn't make gold, or,
Yeah,
with people, it's hard to have positive feelings about the way governments are being run these days. But, if you have negative feelings towards wealth, well, then how do you build wealth for yourself? Because now you have to actually look at yourself as, oh, I'm one of these cruel. I think wealthy people are cruel. Well, now I have wealth, I'm cruel. Or are you? Do you have to
yeah,
be?
yeah,
No. So I think giving people the option to see things in a way that's one, I can be this version that I can be empowered by. I can be kind and still have wealth. I can use this in ways that are actually positive. I can use this experience in a way without holding on to resentment, not because maybe I have a right to be. Maybe someone fell into my lane. Maybe
yeah.
somebody was, not abiding by the rules. Maybe they were doping, but I did the best that I could. I did the best
And
and I
that's all
showed up
that
best.
matters. That's all that matters. Again,
Definitely.
don't compare, don't measure yourself against someone else. Measure yourself from what you know. I
Exactly.
did my best. And,
Exactly.
and it's okay for you to say, okay, I wasn't the best I could be.
Yes.
Um, who knows what it is that's holding back? I'm going to investigate that, but at the same time, I'm not going to dwell on it,
I'm not going to dwell
right?
on it. I'm going to figure out, okay, if I could have been
Yeah.
better, do I want to be? And then, okay, if I want to be better, what are the steps I can take to do that? And who
And
can
if
I
you've
learn
got to
from?
that state, yeah, and who can you learn from? And if you've got to a stage like with some athletes, cannot go any further because it's a young person's line. Okay, how can you take all you have to love what you're doing in order to put in the hours and do what you're doing. How
Yes,
do you take that now and inspire other people and invite other people to know your wisdom and everything you've learned in what you're doing so you can pass it on? Right?
exactly.
So there's always, never be afraid of a redirect. I won't be here
Yeah,
today without a number of redirects. It took a cosmic 2x4, but I got here, and that's the point. A few cosmic 2x4s, I think.
same, same, same. I mean, it was a cosmic 2x4 that helped me figure out what I wanted after I literally had hit all my dreams back to back to
Mm,
back. I knew what I wanted, and I was like, okay, there's other things I want. Why aren't they here?
yeah,
And it was I had to learn to take that detour. Sometimes I was so goal driven, and part of it was happenstance because I just would imagine I want to do something and it would come. But then I had to learn to enjoy the process. And you know what, that was a gift. As much as it's a frustrating gift, because in the moment sometimes learning to enjoy the process is hard because you just want especially if you're used to getting results. But sometimes that is the result, learning to enjoy the process. So,
play, have fun, lighten up, absorb
yes,
it, be the tortoise and pay attention to all the little leaves and insects along the way. You never know how they're going to inspire you, uplift you, or educate you, right?
correct. And that's how I found out what things I really liked and really enjoyed. Sometimes I never gave myself the chance
Yeah.
to truly understand. I could do things and not understand whether or not I liked it. And oftentimes I think people get caught up in that. They get caught up in business. Well, they don't even know if they like what they're doing. And you need to like what you're doing. At least I'm
Because
not
otherwise
saying
people feel if you don't like what you're doing, it becomes the stress of running the business. It becomes that you're just
yes.
money orientated. When you love what you're doing, That's what people are buying. The enthusiasm and the passion for what you're doing. That's what they're investing in.
And it takes away from your ability to articulate value to a
Yeah.
customer and
Yeah.
to deliver that value and to show up and be connected with them because like I said, that connection with self, building it is the first toolbox. And I think even with wealthy people, whether they should pay their fair share or not, I do believe there could be reforms in the tax code that would benefit everyone
Mm.
and require a bit more from people, especially once they hit certain thresholds, just
Yes.
by capping just capping. Like we have ownership control rules in the United States. By capping what controlled ownership rules would apply for certain types of write-offs, limiting things, you could get there. So there are solutions that could be implemented without creating habit. But even that said, the wealthiest, most self-interested person, if they see something that they think they could invest in that would drive returns for them, they could be Scrooge, but Scrooge wants to make more money. They can see if they can see the value in you, even Scrooge will invest. So I think ultimately, if people learn how to invest in themselves and develop that sense of agency, even if our governments get it wrong, ultimately our our humanity, our shared collective humanity, will actually help us get it right.
And is. We are the difference that we seek. We are the change that we seek. We are the peace and
Yes,
love that we seek. And the
we
more
are.
we step into that, the more we actually have changed society.
Exactly. The government, everything else, the laws, they're the last to follow, but they will follow.
Are they?
But they will
We've
follow.
got to be the example and show them the template of which to follow. We're looking for them to lead. No, though we may have a chance in November right now with our cat lady, and we may see a total difference because I've never seen people come from lethargic to enthusiasm in a matter of minutes and hours and days, and just seeing it. And it's like sometimes you could get lethargic and bogged down in what you're doing and feel there is no way out, everything's against you. And then there's that one person,
Yes.
one person sacrificed for believing in the greater good. And then that one person that steps forth and was the hope that everybody needed. And if we carry with us, I'm I know I need to change. I know that I've got to go in a different direction. I don't know where I'm going, but I've got my antennas out there, right? And who is influencing me? Who is inspiring me and inviting me to go down this different path? Pay attention.
It,
So, what do you offer people, my love? And how do people get hold of you?
got it. So, as you know, I have a company called Pearlfectionista where I am hosting a program where I teach people the wealth system. You can teach it even through watching movies like Wonka. It's actually a nice little metaphor for
Yeah.
it. But actually teaching people not only in a fun way, but also teaching them in a way like logistically how you can
Mhm.
use certain things conceptually. These are business systems. These are how they work. This is ultimately what makes that business line profitable. This is the value in that business system. Things that I've seen over the years, understanding how do you recognize an opportunity. For example, you want more pay from an employer, but they don't make enough to pay you more, not without playing survivor and getting rid of one of your colleagues.
Mm,
Oftentimes people aren't cognizant of the bigger issues at play. They're
mhm.
not cognizant of how money systems work. So teaching them that and then teaching them how the tax code fits in, how to use it, and ultimately teaching them the rules of the road and use cases, then teaching them how to de-risk using oftentimes legal tools and certain financial tools if necessary. It really just depends. But and then showing use cases so then people have the opportunity to one, learn these tools, get more information, essentially kind of play around with them and have group conversations with me about it. So I've been creating a program like that and launching it into an app. The app just released, so now I'm just
Right.
getting all that stuff out, and I've done a few pilots, so I know it works. It's
Mm.
just a matter of growing and scaling now, and wanted to help people learn this stuff. And one of the ways that I teach is one of my free gifts. It's a small example. There are many others, but playing bingo, finding your life goals, and then finding like financial goals that you can use, um, and learn them. Whether it's
Yeah.
watching, like I went around, like I said, got around real estate professionals, learned with them. That could be a goal. But then every time you hit bingo, find a proportional reward. Everyone's on Gen Z and millennials for not wanting to give up their Starbucks coffee. And my thought is, don't give it up, but
Hmm.
tie it to your goals, tie it to your life goals. Every time you get bingo, give yourself your Starbucks coffee.
Hmm.
Every time you black out a board, maybe you go to a concert. Do proportional rewards.
Yeah, just like
And
we do with children growing up, right?
it,
So you're doing it for yourself that way. It's championing the achievement, rewarding the achievement.
Yes.
Right?
And rewards can be as simple as just time off, time for
Yes.
yourself, right? It does not have to be something big, but it can be something grandiose. Like, let's say you do win $1 million deal on your business. That's some you should be able to take yourself
Oh
on a
yeah,
nice vacation and
exactly.
splurge for that, right? So you want to set yourself up so you're celebrating as you go, implementing as you go. And then in the app, there are lessons, mindset mastery lessons, really geared towards helping people develop an internal locus of control. So that way they have agency and the thought process that goes into that. So when they're in the actual, if they decide they would like to take the full course that teaches the wealth systems, they're in a state where they can actually receive that information and then be the captain of their own ship.
Exactly. We all want you to be a captain of your own ship. Even if you just want to be first mate or second mate of the ship, it's all about, what's your role? Because every
Yes,
role is important. The triangulist, the janitor, every role is important.
exactly.
But which role are you wanting to step into? And how do you want it to make it work for you in your meaningful purpose, in your financial strategy, and more? So, can
Correct.
you give us your sites and how people can reach you?
Yes, so people can, if they want to stay in touch, they can go to www.pearl.gift/wisdom, and they will receive a link that will take them to get that bingo board, and also eventually, like, I try to not overwhelm people. I send like an email a week at most where they can receive a link to download the app and also follow me in other places and stay in touch.
And
Also,
your other sites and a couple of your
yes.
social medias?
So you can also reach me. I have two sites. They're under construction, shannonterale.com. So SHANANTERALE.com. And Pearlfectionista. So PEARLFECTIONISTA.com. They're been working on them, but they're going to come out soon. And I'm additionally uploading content. I've been opening up a lot of logistics, but you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok as Shannon Terrell.
And the Instagram is also Pearlfectionista.
I do have it.
So
Yeah.
underneath there as well,
Yes, and I'm on
and the
Substack. So
Facebook. Yeah.
correct.
So I love people who take a redirect, because I think that's what it is. Your first part of your life is gathering skills and tools to
Yes.
apply to really a meaningful purpose. And I think that's what's wonderful. And then we also know the value of listening to someone. Um,
Yes.
we've actually spoken for 2 hours without even knowing, or more, because there was so much to share there. And that's the thing, is that if you're looking, for a quick fix, I've only got 5 minutes, next, then you're not ready for,
Yes.
the wisdom. So you have to let that wisdom show.
Correct.
So
100%.
so thank you so much, love. It's been a delight having you here. Thank you for all your wisdom and your redirection. And to everyone else out there, remember, there's always an answer. You've just got to know whom to reach out to. And of course, you can reach out to Shannon, and she's there to help you whatever level you're at. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.